Emma Lenny Benny Onile Loco, Esiku Dede Asikui. Hello everyone, it's Adirunke again. I hope your day is going well. Today, I'd like to talk about the Yoruba metaphor that you see on the screen. Soro Sagbon, Soro Sagbon, Soro Sagbon, and what it means. It's one thing to be able to speak the Yoruba language in the simple, mundane way. Get me a cup, fetch me a plate, I'd like to eat this, I'd like to dance. But one thing that showcases your knowledge of the Yoruba language is your understanding of the non-literal language. So the metaphors, the proverbs, the personifications, even the non-verbal mode of communication. So as much as I'd like to say, this is what this is called, this is what that is called, I would also like you to know these metaphors and proverbs, and so that you would not be translating them literally when you hear them in your day-to-day. If you intend to visit Nigeria, or you just in general find yourself amongst Yoruba speakers in any part of the world. So learning metaphors and personifications is just as important as knowing that this is called abebe and knowing that this is called yari, So yeah. Agbon and akbere are the same. There are two different words for the exact same thing. Agbon is featured in this metaphor. Soros agbon. 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 You can also call it akbere. 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 Agbon. Akbere. Agbo, akbere. And they are typically either made from the raffia of the palm tree. I think there's a particular palm tree species that is called, I'm not sure, but they tend to be shorter. So from the raffia of that kind of palm tree. And they can also be made from bamboo. So a lot of the ones that you'd find in marketplaces in Nigeria are made from this. Are made from both, actually. It's hard to tell. I've not really done any personal census or research to say, oh, how many of you prefer use, or how many of you have more raffia handmade baskets made from raffia, and how many of you have the ones that are made from bamboo. So you mostly find this made from both in Nigeria. I don't know which one is more, but I feel like it would be the one from the palm tree would be more. The one that we make using the raffia of the palm tree would be more. It's also how the what we call concon bile. It was just called concon, but I suppose when the plastic sponges came to be, then to identify those kinds of sponges, the local ones, we would call them, let me see if I can find a picture actually. So they tend to look like this. We call them concon bile. You can say concon, you can say coin coin, you can say ken ken as well. It works. This kinds of sponges are also made from raffia, from that palm tree. But anyway, it is from these materials that these handmade baskets are created. And if you expand Soro Sagbon, because Soro is a contraction of two words, Sagbon, it's not original. It's a combination of two words. We Yoruba people like to combine words, So I suppose for a beginner, that would also be a kind of challenge. Like, is this one word, or is this a contraction of two words. I mean, even words that are considered one word now are contractions of prefixes and verbs in many cases, even the ones that are considered one word. So, like o in ori, o is something that, ri is to see, ori is something that is seen. Maybe I will make a video on that too, just explaining like the fact that even the words that we now consider like one word, like single words, not necessarily contractions, are contractions. And okay, maybe in my next video I will do a in and of itself teaching the new series that I just began. Soro sí Sagbon. Soro sí Sagbon is what you would get essentially. I don't want to get distracted. Is what you would get essentially when you expand these two words. Soro, oro. Sagbon, sí Sagbon. Now, what these mean, word for word. So is say, oro is word or words collectively. It can even be a statement as well. Sí is to. It can also be into. Our prepositions in comparison with English prepositions are not like exact, but we find the ones that are the most similar. So if you say to, is the translation like, okay, mo lọ sí ọjà, I went to the market. In this case, sí is into. So yeah, it can be to, it can be into, depending on the context. Agbon or apere. If you say sọ̀rọ̀ sí apere, you're also right. But people say sọ̀rọ̀ sí agbon, sọ̀rọ̀ sagbon actually more commonly. Agbon is hand-woven basket. So this is what they look like this. So when you say that sọ̀rọ̀ sagbon, what you're saying is, what it means is say words into the basket. The hand-woven is not really as important here as the fact that it's a basket. Well, yeah, the fact that it's a basket. Say words into the basket is what you would be saying if you are thinking about the literal meaning of this phrase. But what it means metaphorically, literally, is to unknowingly say something someone else isn't supposed to know or hear in their presence. To unknowingly say something someone else isn't supposed to know or hear in their presence. So if that happens to me, you would say, Ronke ti sọ̀rọ̀ Sagbon. Ronke has unknowingly said something that someone wasn't supposed to hear or know in their presence. If you say Ronke sọ̀rọ̀ Sagbon, Ronke said something unknowingly that someone else wasn't supposed to hear. If you say Ma sọ̀rọ̀ Sagbon, don't unknowingly or unconsciously say something someone else wasn't supposed to know or hear in their presence. So if you might be talking to the person involved and mistakenly say something, I suppose it's similar to Freudian slip in psychology, when you say something that you were thinking or that was previously discussed with someone else that the person you're now talking to wasn't supposed to know. And even many times the way that it would happen is you would be talking to a different party and the person that you were talking about would be walking by. What's wrong with my speech today? Walking by, or I mean, they may not even be walking by. With technology, it might be a Zoom call that you forgot to end, or like a phone call that you didn't ensure was over before you started talking about the person. Soro Sagbon. And it doesn't necessarily mean that what you've said about the person that they were not supposed to hear is bad either. It could be a surprise, or it could be something that they're just not supposed to know yet for their own well-being. Soro Sagbon. You said it in your presence. For many people, this would happen to them more times than that they will ever be able to count if they don't learn their lesson quickly, that in the current incarnation they're not supposed to really engage in any kind of back talk. I've talked about it in one of my videos that there are some people who, over the course of their life, their current incarnation or current lifetime as who they are, with that identity, that human identity, will find that whenever there's back talk, or whenever there's maybe not necessarily even back talk, but like gossip, they're not supposed to be involved at all. They're not supposed to add their 2 cents. They're not supposed to say anything, because it would be like at the exact point when they want to say something. I'm literally struggling with talking. It would be the exact point where they want to say something that the person that they're talking about will walk by. For many people, it will be in their workplaces. You're saying something with your colleagues, and it's at that exact point that you added your 2 cents, that the manager walked in, the person that you were talking about walked in, and that may get you fired. And the other people will be safe, although they started the conversation, and although they said worse. But of course, you don't want to put them in trouble. It would happen to you 2 times, 3 times, 4 times over the course of your life. And I suppose nobody would have to tell you that in your current incarnation, probably based on the previous one and the fact that certain things occurred, and I mean, there are thousands of situations where in the current you might be walking with, and even walking through this incarnation with Obatala, let's say, and you just know that, I mean, you would just know anyway. There would be signs in your own life where you know that whenever there's certain things that to be kept to oneself, or else they would, be discussed. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if I got my points across. Soro Sagbon. That's what it means. And to say words into let's even revisit this, the literal meaning. To say words into the baskets. To say words into the baskets. To unknowingly say something someone isn't supposed to know in their presence. To say something someone isn't supposed to know in their presence, or to them by mistake. It now begs the question of what Yoruba people think of words, and what form they think words are, words existing, what form. How do they think of words that say? Now, maybe I haven't explained as much as I can. Of course, we know that hand-woven baskets are supposed to tend to have holes in them. Like if you look at all this, you see that they are not quite airtight on the sides, not even extremely airtight at the bottom either, but they tend to have holes. You know, they tend to have holes. So of course, it begs the question of what Yoruba people think of words, what form the existing say words into the basket. And of course, when you do that, it tends to be embarrassing. You know, oh, you've just said that thing you're not supposed to hear. Yoruba people think of words in like from the way that I see it, just thinking about other examples. Oporo kagbon, which I'll probably discuss before the end of the year as well, or before the end of the year. It sounds like soon. I'm trying to think of other examples in my head. There's a long, but that's not even like. Anyway, there are one or two examples that show that we might think of words as liquidy, or like hair, you know, like hair or like liquid, because then words, they you know, you can't hold a basket where you can't hold water in a basket, or even hair can't be really held in a basket. So this is basically like a pictorial description of what you would be saying if you say Soro Sagbon. You say something and it seeps through into the air of, that is if you're not really talking to them but talking about them, but then they are present in one form, whether on the phone or in some form. It almost looks like this, like, you know, a basket doesn't hold words. Soro Sagbon, say words into the basket. A basket cannot hold words. So if a basket cannot hold something, it must either be liquidy or hairy. That's my rationale for, and grounded in other examples that for some reason I didn't add to the slide, so I can't really remember. Based on other examples, kind of indicate that Yoruba people think of words as liquidy, like, oh, words flow, a flow of words. If you were to give them like their own classification, a flow of words, and hair, you know, like they're hairy, like, you know, you can't hold hair in a basket either. Words cannot be held in a basket, which suggests that words would either have liquid forms, would either have a liquid form like water, or would have a form like hair. I don't know. I will get back to you on that, on what my thought process is regarding that. But there are interesting things online about even the saliva, let's say, and their role in our speech. And maybe that has something to do with it. The liquidy form of saliva, maybe that has something to do with it. Perhaps, I suppose, liquid and hair are involved in our communication. When we talk, it involves hair to make sounds, our nose, you know, hair, and it involves liquid, which is our saliva. So that might have something to do with it, you know. And just thinking of the ori, the head, this is the ori, the entirety of this, not just like, you know, as I explained in my share video, the crown chakra, what you call the crown chakra, but like the entirety. Even the mouth has its role as well in many things, in spirituality. I'm trying to think of scenarios where when people, the elders would take, maybe we call it schnapps in Nigeria because that's like the most common brand. It's like an alcoholic type drink, and they would have set their declarations, and they would have pronounced things with ashe, with authority, and they would pour that alcohol into this, typically even the cap of the bottle of alcohol, and they'll pour it in their mouth, and they would, it's in response, people would say irise, irise, like the dew as, you know, come to be. That would probably be another video, but they will, you know, like that. So maybe even the liquidy form of, you know, liquid in the mouth with liquid of words pronounced, and then you in that liquid form, you don't necessarily spit it, but there's a way that you do it through your teeth, and you just I don't want to spit on my computer, but you just, you know, do that on whatever it is that you are addressing or blessing, you know. So I suppose there's something with that, with the baskets not being able to hold words. I mean, if you're going to give a kind of property to words, they must either be in the liquid form or in the hair form. So how does that also connect with other parts of the culture and that thought process that words might have a liquid form, you know, with the okay, I will get back to you on that. For some reason I had an idea before I started recording, and for some reason it has skipped my mind. But anyway, that's the end of that. Ẹ má sọ̀rọ̀ Sagbon. Ọ̀rọ̀ tí ò bá yẹ kí ẹnì kejì gbọ́, tí ò bá yẹ kéèyàn gbọ́, ẹ ṣọ́ra, ẹ wọ̀ tún ẹ wò sí ká ẹ tó sọ. Àní sọ àsọdáràn o. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy the rest of your day, and bye for now.
Àṣẹ o.